In addition, yesterday we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days as negotiators continue on the larger structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States.
This is a major breakthrough after 2 days of talks in Switzerland. China and the U.S. have agreed to slash most recent tariffs for 90 days while they continue to negotiate. So here is what it all means. Remember, last month, the U.S. imposed a massive 145% tariff on Chinese goods, and Beijing responded with an 125% tariff on American products. Now, under this agreement, the U.S. would drop its tariff down to 30%, and China would lower its rate to 10%. And this, of course, will come as welcome news to many U.S. companies who had suspended orders from China, and shipments to West Coast ports had been slowing dramatically over the past few weeks. Speaking in Geneva, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed that both sides want to continue trading and are committed to more balanced trade. And all of these events are unfolding as the president prepares to leave on his first major overseas trip later today, with stops planned in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE.
The tariffs on Chinese imports are coming down, but only for the next 90 days. So what does this mean for you? I'm going to tell you in a second, but first you need to understand we're definitely not out of the woods yet.
If a longer-term deal is not reached with China at the end of these 90 days, can the American people expect those tariffs to go back up to 145%?
No, but they would go up substantially higher.
And then
You know, at 145, you're really decoupling because nobody's going to buy.
Okay, so first, as you know, last month, President Trump imposed 145% tariffs on imports coming into the United States from China. And in response, China put 125% tariffs on American exports going into their country. As reported in this video, this policy has led to imports grinding to a halt at our ports around the United States. Prices are going up on lots of things that Americans buy every day, and U.S. consumers are being stuck with astronomical tariff bills when they buy products directly from companies that just so happen to be located in another country. Well, this morning, the Trump administration announced, starting on Wednesday of this week, for the next 90 days, the United States and China will cut tariffs on each other by 115%. That means the United States tariff on Chinese imports will go from 145% down to 30%. And the Chinese tariffs on American imports will go from 125% down to 10%. But the tariffs the president put on Chinese steel, aluminum, cars, and other existing tariffs prior to April 2nd will stay in place. So what's all this going to do for all of us? Well, first, the fact is, as I have reported for months, investors hate tariffs. So when tariffs start to go away, as they did today, markets soar. We saw that again today, with the Dow ending the day up almost 1,200 points. Now, the other important reality you need to understand is, while it is a positive sign that these tariffs have come down, a 30% tariff is still pretty high. It's definitely lower than 145%, but American importers are warning consumers that this 30% tariff will still increase prices on all of us. You also need to understand that you don't feel the impacts of tariffs immediately, and that goes for this tariff reduction as well. As I've been reporting for lots of products, that impact takes weeks or even more than a month to be felt by consumers. And that's because, for example, Chinese goods that are subject to tariffs often come to the United States by cargo ship. And those cargo ships take anywhere from 2 weeks to 40 days to get to the United States. So if an American importer hears this news today and says, I'm going to place a huge order from China on Wednesday to get a bunch of stuff into the United States at this 30% lower tariff rate, on the long end of that trip, we as consumers are not going to see that item available for purchase until like mid-June. So it's going to be a while before these lower tariff goods are available to us. That means between now and then, we are probably going to be seeing two things. One, higher prices on certain goods coming from China that were subject to the 145% tariffs and were ordered in the month of April. And two, we are probably going to be seeing some shortages of certain types of items. And that's because lots of American importers saw that 145% price tag and they were like, forget it, I'm not placing any orders. And if no orders were placed, then no items showed up to the United States on those cargo ships. The last nugget of information I want you to understand about this trade policy, because this is going to impact you as well, is the uncertainty of all of it. One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Today they're 145%, tomorrow they're 30%. All this chaos is causing lots of problems for American companies. Businesses don't just plan for next week. Really, right now, they're planning for next year and the next 5 years. And how can they plan when they don't know how much things they sell are going to cost?
So goofy alert. Trump is facing backlash because him and China came to an agreement to stop the tariffs for 90 days. The goofy alert is for whoever you think deserve it. Don't scroll, let me explain. Even though a lot of people are parading Trump because they made a lot of money today on the stock market, as you can see by this chart, by things going up as high as 4%, some Americans are siding with China, clowning the president, stating that he bent the knee and apologized for the tariffs. Some saying that China won and China knows what they're doing. Others stating that China basically stood on business, and when Trump saw that he was not able to basically keep up with their type of timing, he had to bend the knee. Then you have others stating that this is just a temporary fix to a problem that was never a problem that he created. So yeah, a lot of people are not happy on the Shade Room comments and all that, and all the other blog pages. Regardless, now tariffs on China are only 30% and tariffs on the US are only 10%. And for the next 90 days at least. I'm just here reporting the news. What do you guys think about this situation and this topic? Yeah.
So President Trump said he has some great news for the economy that he'll be announcing today. And we wake up and find out today that America and China has paused their tariff wars for 90 days. So they came to some type of agreement. Agreement being that China is going to drop their tariffs down from 125% to 10%. And the United States is going to drop their tariffs down from 145% to 30%. People were saying that maybe the Pope, just being elected the Pope, has something to do with it. Now, in the process of all of this, a lot of people thought that America was tanking. Because after China said they'll fight to the end, and that's what they said, they'll fight to the end, it seemed like things were about to get real hard over here for us. But in all reality, China was struggling. Their backs was against the wall. Factories was about to shut down because you already know that we are a heavy consumer all over the world. So when things stopped coming to the United States, things stopped. Now it's true that there was no ships on our docks and things weren't coming in. But it's also true that the things that they need over there, they weren't getting. Now, to be honest, we didn't know that they were in negotiations, but we knew that they were in negotiation. But just remember this, 90 days means 90 days. And remember what China said. They're willing to play hardball. But let's see what happens. I'm out.
So some big news just dropped, y'all. So the US and China just agreed to slash the price on tariffs for 90 days. 90 days, y'all. They came to a little deal. The US is dropping the tariffs from 145% down to 30%. And China is dropping theirs from 125% down to 10%. So what does this mean? Does this mean the dollar goes up? The stocks is up? I know shipping companies loving this because as y'all all seen, our docks was completely empty. I know some people jumping in joy as they get to see their Shein and Temu prices go back down. But hold up. It's not over, y'all. I said only 90 days. They still gotta come up with a deal after that. Cause if not, this shit gonna go right back up, probably even further. I'm watching this close. So what do y'all think? You think they gonna find a deal before the 90 days? Or are they gonna go full-fledged back onto a trade war? Y'all let me know down below in the comments.
The U.S. and China issued a joint statement on Monday announcing an agreement to cut reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, with both sides recognizing the importance of sustainable, long-term, mutual benefit economic and trade relationship. The U.S. and China representatives convened for a talks in Geneva and Switzerland this weekend in a bid to establish the basis for negotiations in a border potential trade deal. President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariff measures announced in April touched off a spiraling trade war between the two economic giants and prompting fears of a recession in the U.S. We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels, Treasury Secretary Scott said at a Monday press conference in Switzerland. Both sides at a reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 150%, Scott said. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson added that the U.S. and China will maintain 10% reciprocal tariffs as part of the agreement. Today, with this agreement, we come to agreement that through that our reciprocal tariff rate will go down to 10% on the United States, Jameson said. The Chinese on their side also go down 115% to 10%, and they move the countermeasures that they have in place. Jameson confirmed that during the pause, the effective tariff on the Chinese goods entering the U.S. will be 30%. He also said that China's effective tariffs will be at 10% for the duration of the pause. The changes will come into force by Wednesday. The joint U.S.-China statement said, "What matters for the agreement today is that we each agreed to come down on reciprocal tariffs and related retaliation to 10%, Jameson said in a statement carried by China's official state news. Beijing said that the two sides will establish a mechanism to continue discussions about economic trade relations once the measures set out in Monday's agreement were in place. These discussions may be conducted alternately in China and in the United States or a third country upon agreement in the parties. The statement continued, as required, the two sides may conduct working-level constellations or relevant economic and trade issues. Monday's announcement followed 2 days of talks that both sides described as successful. In media briefing on Sunday, Chinese Vice Premier He said talked trade with the U.S. achieved substantial progress and reached important consensus. Earlier Sunday, the White House said that it reached an agreement without providing any details. While Jameson called it a deal, Scott said only that substantial progress had been made, and that is good, but hopefully it remains. But hell, what do I know? I'm just a talking head. Have a great day, YouTube.
And we're back with a Fox News alert. President Trump just announcing on Truth Social that prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced by 30 to 80% almost immediately. This appears to be the major announcement that the president has been teasing for days. He plans to sign an executive order tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., so that's news ahead of all the other news that we've already been talking about for tomorrow. Monday's going to be a busy day. The president's saying on Truth, Molly, I will be instituting a most favored nation policy whereby the United States will pay the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price anywhere in the world. It's an interesting move for the White House.
It is, and that is kind of about trade. At the same time, he's also been talking about expanding the ability to make drugs here, making that easier for companies to be able to do that, and companies to build, and drug companies to build, and factories to build, and to bring some of that home as well. And then also, not to forget, we're expecting some sort of announcement related to China. I don't know if that all gets woven into this or not, Lydia, but your thoughts.
I was thinking the same thing because a lot of our active ingredients for our pharmaceutical drugs come from places like China and from India as well. So I was wondering, I had the same thought. I wonder if some of this China deal is also addressing where our pharmaceutical ingredients are coming from and having to do something to do with, reshoring or giving us better access or more transparent access to those critically needed ingredients. I also have another thought, too, is I wonder if he's addressing the pharmacy benefit managers. We've heard a lot about them in the news, but those are kind of like the intermediary players that broker access to drugs between hospitals and pharmacies from the drug makers. There have been a lot of questions about their role and how pricing is set for access for Americans. Maybe he's addressing that. That's been a big issue as well. So we'll have to wait and see till tomorrow.
Lowering prescription drug costs? President Trump says it's easy. I'll just sign an executive order about it.
But we never had a president that had the courage to do this. And nobody knew the system like I do. I mean, I've gotten to know this system so well.
This morning, President Trump signed an executive order called Delivering Most Favored Nation Prescription Drug Pricing to American Patients at the White House. Most favored nation is a term used in trade to say this country should receive the best price, the most favorable terms for a specific product or service. The president is really focusing in on the fact that pharmaceuticals are so much cheaper in foreign countries than they are in the United States, which is a fact. So in theory, what the president is suggesting is that because the United States has been so good to the pharmaceutical companies for so long, they should give the United States most favored nation treatment when it comes to how much they charge Americans for prescription drugs. Trump says whatever the lowest price a country is paying for any specific prescription medication is the price the United States will pay, and that's it. Now, that sounds great, right? The problem is it's not that easy. We still live in a capitalist society. The U.S. government cannot force an American company to lower their prices. And the fact is, when President Trump tried to do something very similar to this during his first term, the courts shot it down as unconstitutional. But let's put all that aside for a second and focus on what Trump actually said today about all of this and how he says it's going to save costs for Americans.
We'll slash the cost of prescription drugs, and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think 59. If you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Farmer has to say, we're sorry, but we'll not be able to do this any longer to these countries that have been so tough. They've been very tough, nasty. It's trade. It's trade.
I don't know what to tell you. That's what he said. I know it's confusing. It was sort of confusing to me, but from what I gather in the context of this entire hour-long press conference, as President Trump sees it, the reason why he believes Americans pay so much more for prescription medication is because he says Big Pharma is caving to foreign countries when those foreign countries take a hard stance on the price they're going to pay for a specific drug. And as a result, Trump believes these pharmaceutical companies pass most of the cost of research and development onto U.S. consumers instead of distributing that price of R&D equally among all the countries that purchase the same medicine. Now, that's Trump's opinion about what's happening. Other people say the problem is actually pharmaceutical companies are just jacking up the price in America to pad their profits in America. Now, that's a debate for another day. So let's put all that aside because honestly, what President Trump said is less important than what he actually put on paper. And what he actually put on paper basically says the U.S. government is going to investigate foreign countries in the way they deal with these pharmaceutical companies, and the United States government is going to nicely ask the pharmaceutical companies to lower their prices. The executive order actually says, 1, the Secretary of Commerce shall take all necessary and appropriate action to ensure foreign countries are not engaging in any act, policy, or practice that may be unreasonable or discriminatory, that may force American patients to pay disproportionately more for the research and development of these drugs. 2, it says the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall facilitate direct-to-consumer purchasing from pharmaceutical manufacturers that sell their products to consumers at that most favored nation price. 3, within 30 days, Health and Human Services will communicate most favored nation price targets to pharmaceutical manufacturers. If the pharmaceutical companies decide not to lower their prices, then the executive order says Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. will propose a rule that will force the companies to lower their prices. Secretary Kennedy will also consider certification to Congress to allow importing cheaper prescription drugs from developed nations on a case-by-case basis. The Attorney General and the Federal Trade Commission will undertake enforcement action against pharmaceutical companies for anti-competitive prices. The Secretary of Commerce shall review exports of pharmaceutical drugs that may be fueling the global price discrimination. And lastly, the FDA Commissioner shall review and potentially modify or revoke approvals granted for drugs. So if you want to read this order for yourself, I'm going to email it out to you tonight in my Facts HQ email, so make sure you sign yourself up.
We got some huge breaking news that just came in, that Donald Trump just signed an executive order to go after all the pharmaceutical companies, bringing down prescription drugs anywhere between 60 to 70, 80, some to as deep as 90% off. It's a very simple executive order. It says that he's going to price match the country that is selling it for the cheapest price. I mean, this is tremendous. This is something we all can agree upon, that what this country has been waiting for. Not fooling around, no games played. It's just another example of putting America first. So I'm gonna leave it like this, because I truly had enough. To the news outlets that continue to spew lies about this president and misdirect half of the American people that are in this country, I'm gonna reach out to our president to put this to a stop. You know, it's one thing not to come in between our freedom of speech, but it's another to continue spewing hates and lies about this current administration. To all my Democratic brothers and sisters that are out there, we can continue to talk about all the disagreements that we have about this president, or we can start now, get together and celebrate in all the accomplishments that he's doing for both of our families. He might not be perfect. It might not be an easy pill to swallow, but this man is working overtime to secure all the interests of the citizens, Democratic or Republican, of the United States of America.